Welcome to episode 9 of the YMB BTC podcast. This is part 2 of our Bitcoin services series. Today we'll describe some of our favorite ways to socialize with the Bitcoin community, like on the Bitcoin-otc forums. We also chat about another podcast we love, Let's Talk Bitcoin, and some of the Bitcoin exchange services we use the most, Purse.io and Coinbase. Before we get started, I want to announce the first guest we'll ever have on the YMB podcast. On March 14th, 2014, we'll release an interview with the CEO of Amagi Metals, Stephen MacAskill. You definitely don't want to miss that, so tune in 2 weeks from today. Your hosts this week are Tim Baker, John Stuart, and myself, Daniel Brown. Here we go!
Alright, so the next item is Bitcoin-otc, which is a forum, a Bitcoin forum. I haven't used it a whole lot just yet. I just made my account a couple weeks ago, and it takes a little bit after you make an account to be able to post on the regular forum. They have a newbie forum. I'm not sure exactly how long you have to be logged in. It has to do with login time, though. You have to spend a certain amount of time logged in before you can post on the regular forum. Yeah, it's a pretty cool forum. It's got a whole lot of topics. You can pretty much talk about anything you want. There's obviously like general Bitcoin discussion. There's more technical discussion. There's talk about mining. There's an economy board on there that has a marketplace and talk about trading and economics and stuff like that. And then there are kind of just like off-topic and random forums that you can post on too. They also have a bunch of local ones that are separated by language or country. So there's a whole lot of stuff you can post on, which that's maybe one of the only criticisms I could give it, is that if you're new, it could possibly be a little overwhelming because there's topics for pretty much everything on here. But once you get used to it, that actually ends up being a good thing because you can pretty much find a place to talk about anything on there if you want to. And Daniel might be able to talk about this more than I can, but it seems like a good place to start getting connected to other Bitcoin users, because that's kind of a hard thing right now. I mean, because not everybody's using Bitcoin, it can be kind of hard to find other people who are interested in it. So it's kind of awesome to have a forum where you can know that everybody there is into Bitcoin too.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, in the physical world, it can be hard to find other people who know about Bitcoin, and even harder to find people who care about it. But yeah, so it is a helpful place, a consolidated place for people who are interested in Bitcoin. Well, you're right. It can be a little hard for newer people. They have some fairly heavy restrictions on new users. They can only post every so often, but yeah, the reason they do that is just to prevent spam, because there are people who will just make a ton of accounts and post all over the place really pointless and annoying things.
Yeah, I definitely think that can be a good restriction.
Right. So it can be hard for new users, but it is helpful once you're into it. I spend probably about 90% of my time in the marketplace, and probably about 90% of that time is spent in the services forum. I check the physical goods section and like the currency exchange now and then, but I'm most interested in the services, because mostly I try to find, if anybody's looking for a service that I can provide, then yeah, I want to provide it for them and get some Bitcoins. That's pretty cool. I don't do this, but if you are looking for a fairly easy way to make some Bitcoins, not a ton, but if you want to do it, there are quite a few people in the services forum who will pay you to put their advertisement in your signature. Mostly it's casinos, because they have quite a bit of money to spend, and advertising is extremely helpful for casinos. So they will actually, based on how many posts you have, and again, most new users might not be able to get involved in this right away, but once you have some significant activity and some good posts, then people will actually pay you to put their advertisement in your signature. Especially if you're new to Bitcoin, it's a good way to make a little bit. Yeah, that's in the services forum. That's where I spend most of my time. You can, if you like to trade currencies, there's a pretty good forum for that, if you like to buy and sell Bitcoin. I will say, and this just kind of stinks, it's annoying, but it's a fact. Well, there's two true facts, and they're both annoying. Number one is that there are a lot of scammers in the Bitcoin community. And it's just because of the nature of Bitcoin, because it's free, because it's easy, because it's irreversible. Yeah, there's quite a few scammers. So on the one hand, you have to be careful. But another problem that kind of comes from that is that almost every, maybe not almost every, but a really annoying percentage of the posts get accused of being scams, whether it's true or not. If you go in that currency exchange and just click on one, somebody will say, I'm selling this for this. Next post will be, oh, this must be a scam because of this. Or somebody's saying, I have PayPal and I need Bitcoin. Next post is, oh, this must be a scam because he's using PayPal. Well, yeah, maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. But it's just annoying how almost every single offer gets accused of that. And it's just something we have to deal with. That's part of the, maybe the cost of freedom. I don't really know what to call it, but it's annoying, but I would much rather have that, and I would much rather be able to choose who I can trust and just use an escrow than, well, we always talk about politics, and we don't have to get into this, but I would rather have scams here and there, and I would rather have to only trust the people that I actually trust than be forced to turn my money over to crooks and government officials, but we don't have to get into that.
With forums, you're always just going to be, it's the internet, so people are always going to be kind of annoying. Talk is cheap, and just sitting behind your computer and typing something, and I don't know if maybe they're trying to annoy people, maybe they're actually trying to stop someone from getting a scam or getting scammed, so, but most of those things, I think most people would be able to figure it out for themselves, but.
Yeah, I think one of the coolest things, though, is kind of just that it gives you a sense for, like, there being a little bit of a Bitcoin community, which is nice.
Yeah, that's definitely true. With a community, yeah, it's hard with scams here and there, and it's hard because there's a lot of people and talk is cheap. But it still is a community, and if you're active enough, it's really fairly easy to find some good friends, some people you can trust, some good deals for buying or selling or providing services. If you're looking for something, you can find it there. Maybe not immediately, but especially if you're just browsing, there are some pretty good deals. There are people who might want a service that you can provide. There's some contests and giveaways that if you're active enough, it's really not too hard to win a couple free Bitcoins here and there. I've actually done, there was one that was a contest. Well, it wasn't really a contest. It was more like a lottery, but I won 1.1 gigahash per second for 5 years. So I get, not a ton, but a few Bitcoins from that, and it's free. I get paid every week for that. I did one where I just had to share some links on Facebook, and they gave me 1/4 of a gigahash per second, which, again, not very much at all, but heck, it's free, and I get paid. That one I get paid daily, so that's pretty cool. And it just all comes from having a community, from sitting around and helping people out, looking to see what's available and things like that. So that's just pretty cool. Something similar to the forums, but a slightly different format, is the Bitcoin. Well, there's quite a few Bitcoin IRC channels, but the one I use the most is called Bitcoin-otc. It's on the Freenode network. The channel is Bitcoin-otc if anybody wants to join it. And same thing for their website. You can go to Bitcoin-otc.com, and there's a button right on the homepage you can click to, if you want to join the IRC channel in your web browser, you can do that. The OTC stands for over the counter, so it's kind of just like the forums. Like I said, I spend most of my time in the marketplace. Well, that's what I do on IRC too. I spend most of my time in the trading channel, or over the counter is a form of trading, I guess. And it's just a channel, a community, a bunch of people. There's a lot of people who use both the forums and the OTC channel. Some people who only use one. I spend quite a bit of time on actually, I'm logged in 24/7. I try and check it several times a day. There are some very trusted regular users, and I mean very trusted. They've traded thousands of dollars with tons of people, and they're extremely well known, and you can trust the heck out of them. Just to mention a few that I can think of, there's BCB. I've handled thousands of dollars for him. There's RG. I've traded over 10K with him probably. Those are two extremely well-known users. JCP Ham, I've done a couple trades with him. Blazed Out 419, I've done, 5 or 6 different kinds of deals. Not just 5 or 6 deals, but 5 or 6 different kinds of deals. It's called over the counter because there's no mediator. You connect directly with your counterparty and you make your own deal and nobody else is intervening. You make your own terms, you set things up by yourself, and that's it. There's nobody there to help you. I have sold gift cards on there. I've sold cigars on there. I've sold silver on there. The thing that gets traded the most is obviously Bitcoin. People just trading Bitcoin for fiat. So I do quite a few PayPal deals on there. I've used Dwala on there. I've used ACH transfers, just pretty much bank-to-bank transfers. I'm sure I've done lots more. I just can't think of them right now. One of the most helpful parts of that system is the web of trust that they have. I could talk about this for a while, and I probably will. Here goes. Their trust system it has a few flaws, but it is really helpful. Basically how it works is you can register. Well, you can use a GPG key or a PGP. I can't say exactly what the difference is, but the point is that you have some sort of encryption key that represents you. It's your key. You have the private key, and there's a public key that you can give to other people. I'm not going to describe all the cryptography of it, but the point is you use it to represent yourself, and every time you log into the IRC channel, you authenticate and you prove that you're really the person who registered with that nickname, and you prove that because you have the private key, then you're the person who you say you are. And people, once you're authenticated, then you're able to leave ratings for other people, and other people can leave ratings for you. The ratings go from -10 to +10. If it's a scammer, obviously you give them a -10. If it's your first trade, most people only rate a 1, and then your second trade, people will normally rate a 2. Obviously, once you've traded regularly with someone, once you really trust them, you give them a 10. I don't want to brag, but I will say I might be one of those fairly well-known users that pretty much anyone can trust, because I think I have a rating of 10 from RG. I have a rating of at least 5 from BCB. I have something like a 7 from JCP Ham, things like that. So a lot of the big people there trust me just because I've been on there for so long and done so many deals. So yeah, that's helpful because it's just a encrypted and fairly legitimate rating system where it's nothing more than just giving someone a rating and checking other people's ratings to see if you can trust them. The flaws come in when basically GPG keys, or actually I forgot to mention, every Bitcoin address has a public key and a private key as well. And so there's actually 2 forms of authentication. You can use GPG or you can use your Bitcoin address. Again, I'm not going to go into details, but it's just a way to authenticate you. The problem is Bitcoin addresses are free. GPG keys are free. So people can make pretty much as many accounts as they want and leave fake ratings for people and things like that. And so what happened to me once, again, there's quite a few scammers. I found a scammer on the channel. I knew that he was scamming someone else, actually. It's a long story. I'm not going to go into details, but the point is I foiled his plan. It was a scammer who got stopped. I ruined his plan. And he got mad at me. So what he did was he took all probably 10 or 15 accounts that he had, and every single one of them left me a -10 rating. And they're still there. If you go on the thing and you check, you'll see I have a whole bunch of -10 ratings, which on the one hand, that's bad, because some people might see that and be like, oh crap, I don't trust him. But the system also kind of makes up for that sort of flaw by, well, first of all, on the page where it shows the -10 that they left me, but it also shows that the scammer who left that rating for me has a total rating of -2 or 300. So that shows you right there. The person who left the rating has an extremely negative rating because everybody knows they're a scammer. Everybody rated them -10. And so you know that the -10 that they gave me is not trustworthy because the person who left the rating has a terrible rating as well. And it's also, you can see all 10 or 15 of them came at the exact same, well, within a minute or two. And they all have, when you leave a rating, there's a little section for comments too. And all the comments, they're not identical, but you can tell that it's the same person because he leaves a bunch of $signs and he says in all caps, "This scammer took my money," and they all pretty much are pretty similar to that. So you know it's all from the same person. So yes, there's a flaw in that people can exploit the system, but it's also not a huge deal because it's fairly easy to know that people are exploiting the system. Now, I guess getting back to just the IRC channel, the point is, it's a fairly natural way to trade. You just find someone, make a deal with them, and go with it. No regulations, there are guidelines, but you don't have to follow them. So yeah, it's pretty easy. If you want to get started there, it can take some time to build some trust and to find some good deals, but it's just pretty open, pretty relaxed. At times, the discussion in the channel, it's not always about trading. It'll go a little bit off topic now and then just for a little bit of fun. But of course, if you want to make a deal with someone, you can always enter a private chat directly with them and make a deal. So it's fun. I know you guys haven't used it a ton.
I was on it for a couple days because I was trying to make some trades and just trying to use something other than like Mt. Gox. But I never actually went through with any trades just because, it was like my first couple days, so nobody really trusted me. I hadn't done anything to warrant trust. So, if you're looking to just talk to some people and maybe casually buy stuff every once in a while, you might be better off going to like Bitcoin-otc or something like that, because I think it probably takes a while for the channel to be useful to you. But I'm sure once it is, it's great. You've already talked about that.
Right. One difference, and you're right, the forum would have a little bit of an advantage here, is on the chat room, technically it's logged, but basically, if you just go on there and advertise a deal, after about a minute or two when it gets pushed way up on the log, no one's going to scroll up and see your advertisement. So yeah, compared to the forums, which that can happen a little bit on the forums as threads get pushed down, but also on a forum it's a little bit more permanent. I didn't mention this yet, there is actually an order book for the OTC channel, and you can use commands to actually place orders in the order book that are a little bit more permanent. You can say I'm selling 10 Bitcoins for, $500 a piece and with these payment methods and things like that. And that all gets recorded in the order book, and I think they stay on there for 2 weeks or something. So there is a little bit of a better advertising system, but unfortunately not everyone uses it, and I think even less people check it. It's not the most used, most efficient system out there. It's more for just, well, honestly, there's a huge variety. Sometimes people will advertise on the channel. Sometimes people will post in the order book. Sometimes it's people who already know each other and who barely even use the channel, but go straight to a private chat and do deals with people that they already know, which happens to me now and then. Some of my regular traders will just go straight to private messaging me. It's also, though, like I said, it goes off topic a little bit sometimes. So if you're using, I don't know, Coinbase and you're having a problem and you can't figure out why, just get on the channel and say, hey, this is what's going on. Has anybody had the same problem? And people are always willing to help you and things like that. So, I mean, obviously try to focus on Bitcoin, but if you have any questions that aren't related to trading, there are a lot of great, helpful people there. And the forum's good for that too, but if it's just a quick question that pretty much anyone will be able to answer right away, you don't need to clog up the forum thread and make a whole new thread for an original post and one response that answers the question and be done with it. Instead, just go to the channel, ask the question, get an answer, and be done with it. Or if you don't get an answer, you can talk to other people or work together and figure it out. So it's similar to the forum, but it's also just another option with some little differences. You're listening to the You, Me, and Bitcoin podcast. We need your help. For starters, we would love it if you would take the time to visit our website, youmeandbtc.com. There you can find a unique Bitcoin address for every single podcast and article. We would be forever grateful if you could provide some feedback by tipping your favorite content. We also have a Facebook page that needs some likes. You can find a link on our site or go straight to facebook.com/youmeandbtc. We'll keep you updated there about ourselves and any important Bitcoin news throughout the week. Lastly, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the show. You can find us on iTunes or sign up to receive email updates on our website. Thanks for your support.
We'll talk a little bit about Let's Talk Bitcoin, which I've referenced quite a bit on this show. That's run by, I think, it was started by Adam Levine.
Yeah, it was. Adam B. Levine.
That's a singer, too, right? Adam
that's
Levine.
the guy
right?
from
Okay.
Maroon 5. It's not the same guy. I think that's why he always has the B.
Okay. So yeah, he runs it, and then a lot of times he has Stephanie Murphy and Andreas M. Antonopoulos. Those two are pretty much every single episode contributors, and then they also have a few other people they have on there sometimes. Yeah, it's kind of just a website that has a lot of content on it, a lot of articles. The way I got introduced to them was through podcasts, and that's kind of how we got into doing this podcast, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. But they have, I think they were one of the first people to do this, where they would, for every single different article or every single different podcast they have a different Bitcoin address that you tip that specific address instead of tipping them in general, so that they know, okay, if we write this about problems with getting Bitcoin or with the U.S. government's stance on Bitcoin, if people are tipping that more, we know that's what people want to hear about. So if we want to write more. And then if no one cares about how, I don't know, people are saving endangered types of birds with Bitcoin, they know not to write any more like that. So I mostly listen to the podcast. I've read a few articles and I've tipped a few articles, but mostly I just go there to download their podcast, which now comes out every Tuesdays and Fridays. At least it normally does. If it doesn't come out on Tuesday or Friday, it comes out the next day normally. Yeah, it's very, very good quality podcast. They always have guests. There's normally about 3 or 4 sections, where one of them is normally the 3 that I mentioned before, talking about some issue. Normally it's a more recent issue. And then the rest of it, it's one of those 3 in a specific section interviewing a guest. They go to a lot of different Bitcoin conferences or expos, stuff like that. So they'll do interviews there. I started listening to them last summer, I believe, and then I started sending some to you, Daniel, and then we both kind of just started listening to it a lot of the time because they got a lot of nice information out of there. And I guess I'll mention now how we're listening to podcasts like that, and then you emailed Adam about, I forget exactly how you did it, but you emailed him about if he thought that'd be a good idea, or...
It was kind of, I think I used the word fortuitous. Because, well, I don't want to say we're copycats, because there are some pretty notable differences between us. But, I mean, of course we had inspiration from them because we were listening to them. And basically what happened was, I realized, we already talk about Bitcoin every week. We actually had a set meeting time, and we would just talk a lot about Bitcoin and anything like that, silver too, a little bit. So I'm like, wait, if we already have that conversation every week, why don't we record it and publish it? And so that's basically what happened was. But the fortuitous part was when I remember it was Black Friday, the evening of Black Friday. We had already scheduled and planned to do our first recording, and I was listening to Let's Talk Bitcoin for that day, and somewhere in the episode he said, there's not enough Bitcoin podcasts out there, so if you want to start one, get in touch with me. And I'm like, wow, that's weird. We actually are recording today. So I did. I emailed him, and we entered their contest that they set up a few weeks later, and we were rushed when we recorded that episode for the contest, and we didn't end up really winning much or anything, but it was nice to be a part of that, and we did get the consolation prize, the participation prize. So that was cool. And since then, even though we didn't really win much, we decided to just go with it. Again, I don't want to say we're copycats because there's some pretty obvious differences. They're pretty professional. They have a lot more significant sponsors, and they probably get paid for those. We don't get paid anything yet. And so far, we've just stuck to a single conversation, pretty continuous, without guests, without segments. I mean, we have segments, but it's still just us talking, so yeah, there's some important differences, but we definitely get inspiration from them. We still listen to them, get some good information from them, and, I mean, in some ways, you might be able to consider them competitors, but I don't care. I still want you to listen to them. I encourage everyone to check them out. Hey, leave tips for them, too. I'm sure they could use them.
Yep. Yeah, even if you don't want to listen to even if you subscribe to get their podcast downloaded automatically, they have a big backlog of podcasts. They're up to like 75 now, so you can get all those ones before. I know a while back, probably in the 50s range, maybe, they did a quote-unquote beginners podcasting episode, which tried to explain, without going too in-depth, they tried to explain kind of just some like the beginnings of Bitcoin, like if you wanted to download it, if you're new to it, or if you know someone who kind of is interested, you could give that to them, like a family member or friend. So they have stuff like that, but then they also, about a month ago, they had an hour and 15-minute long conversation between Andreas and I don't remember the guy's name.
Adam Back?
Yeah, a pretty big player in the cryptocurrency and just cryptography in general, but a long...
Yeah, it was like an hour and 45 minutes or something like that.
By saying long, I'm not trying to say it's bad, but...
They shoot for 1 hour episodes, but yeah, obviously that one went a little over.
Yeah, normally theirs are in segments. This one was just a straight through those two talking, and it was, even though I didn't understand all of it, it was still really great to hear. But sometimes it got very technical, so you can go from, they have content anywhere from that beginner episode to something like that. And recently they've been doing something where they have a panel that they just record and people just get up and talk at some of these conferences. But normally their episodes are they're not too confusing, they're not too really technical. Anyone who's really has a pretty good understanding of Bitcoin will be able to follow. So yeah, definitely check them out, throw them some tips.
Next, we're going to talk about some exchanges. I mean, we already mentioned Coinbase quite a bit, and it's, quite a few people know about it. In America, I mean, unless you're worried about anonymity, which, I don't know, maybe we should be, but we haven't been too much. Who knows, we could be regretting that in the future. I actually have been thinking more and more about that recently with all this regulation talk. You know, if they ever do start taxing this heavily or anything like that, do I really want them to be able to just ask Coinbase and see what all I did? I don't know. Who knows? I might have some issues coming up. But anyway, the point is, Coinbase is pretty cool. Not very anonymous, but extremely convenient. They have some pretty big investors behind them, quite a bit of money. They're a pretty well trusted, a pretty big company. I mean, they're not without their flaws. We've had some issues with them in the past. Nothing to make us stop using them, though. Well, before I get into that, though, I'll just describe them. It's really just an exchange. Well, that's actually a little bit of a misnomer because they don't provide an exchange service in that it's not just software that connects deals between buyers and sellers. It's a very subtle difference, but it's actually pretty important. They don't just connect other buyers and sellers on some sort of exchange platform. They physically themselves are buying and selling the Bitcoin to and from Coinbase. They don't connect people, they buy and sell directly. I'm not sure how well I explained that, but it's important because, again, I don't know too many details, but I've heard that that's what allows them to operate a little smoother in the US without as much regulation and oversight, is because they don't actually provide an exchange service. They actually buy and sell Bitcoins themselves. But anyway, for us, the users, that really doesn't make much of a difference. It doesn't matter who we're buying them from or selling them to. It's just a place to buy or sell. And you can do both. And the price follows Bitstamp pretty close. Not exactly, but for a while that was a pretty good price because Mt. Gox was higher, but that's not really the case anymore, so we won't get into that. But you can link up your bank account directly. They can actually, this might have changed slightly, but what you can actually do is, if you trust them, not everybody's going to, and that's okay, but if you trust them, you can actually give them your bank username and password, and they can verify you in a few minutes. Instead of, like PayPal, sometimes they verify you by making 2 small deposits into your account, and you have to wait a few days for them to show up and say how big the deposits were, which I think you can do that with Coinbase too, but if you trust them, you can verify within a few minutes. They do have a wait time. Again, this is just to protect from any fraud or spam from new users. And this varies. I might not get this exactly right, but I'll see what I can do. Unless you're like completely verified with a credit card and if you've verified your identity, unless you've done that, then whenever you make a purchase with your bank account, you have to wait 4 days before those Bitcoins actually become available for you to spend. The only reason for that is just so they want to make sure they have their money, that you have the money to give them, and that it gets to them before they give you your Bitcoin to send around the world. So that makes a little bit of sense. If you're in a hurry, it can be annoying to wait 4 days, but the price is locked in. So unless you're planning on using that Bitcoin within the next 4 days, it really doesn't make too much of a difference because the price is locked in from the time you place the order. So that's helpful. In order to be able to buy instantly, you have to wait 30 days. You have to make a purchase and then wait 30 days, just so that, again, to avoid fraud, because somebody could make an account and somehow get their identity verified and buy instantly. But if they have to wait, that sort of deters the fraudsters a little bit. Yeah, like I was saying about the credit card, you can verify with a credit card, but you can't actually buy with a credit card. The purpose of the credit card verification, it's kind of like a backup. If your bank account doesn't come through, then they will charge your credit card as a last resort to get their money that I would say they deserve it because you made a deal with them, and if the money's not in your bank, then sure, they should be allowed to charge your credit card. Again, if you're not comfortable with that, you don't have to give them your credit card. You can wait the 4 days, and no problem. So, I guess the biggest thing with Coinbase, it's not perfect, but it's just convenient, mostly because it connects to your bank account, and they have some fairly good backing, fairly good reputation. So if you're looking for a real easy way to get involved, That's a really good place to start, at least in the U.S. I don't think they really service many other countries. It might be only in the U.S., but it is helpful for us. I guess I do want to just mention those issues that we ran into. Again, I mean, they're just occasional. They're not a huge deal, but I will mention them. I think, Tim, you went through this a couple times too, where basically what happened was we initiated the transaction, but it never hit the network. And, the amount was deducted from our Coinbase account, but it never actually went through on the Bitcoin network. Luckily, they have a system set up where if it stays that way for 24 hours, then the amount will be credited back to your account and the transaction will basically be canceled. I don't even know what would cause that, but they have a way to sort of fix that. But it does take 24 hours, and it might just be lag, and it could go through in 12 hours. So what do you do? Do you resend the Bitcoin, or do you wait 24 hours to see if it goes through later? Because if you resend them, it might go through twice, and that could cause problems. So yeah, that's happened before. One of their biggest issues, and this is a little more serious, I mean, luckily they did work it out eventually, but it was really annoying. Generally, when you sell Bitcoins to Coinbase, they tell you that they will deposit money into your bank account within, I think it's like 3 to 4 business days. I think it was actually 2 business days at first. But what happened, it was during that big bubble at the end of 2013. There was a lot of volume, a lot of activity buying and selling, and basically their accounts couldn't keep up, and they were not depositing money for, I think it was over a week, and people were really worried, like, I sold you my Bitcoins, I don't have my Bitcoins anymore, you have my Bitcoins, but you're not giving me my money, you're not depositing into my bank account. That went on for a week or two. They've since adjusted their time frame from, I think, 2 days to 3 or 4 days. They claimed on the forums, they mentioned that they said that it was just a mistyped ACH kind of transfer, or they didn't upload the correct list of transactions or something. And it was worrisome for a while because you didn't know what was happening to your money, and especially for me, I wasn't prepared, and it put my bank account into the negative for a time. But, they worked it out, and it hasn't happened since. So as always, there's always a little bit of risk. You always got to be careful. There could always be issues, even with big companies like this. But in general, they've also come through pretty well. I know you two both use Coinbase. Any thoughts?
I haven't had a problem, not that I remember like that. I'm also not, I don't know that you are anymore, but I know a while ago you were just moving a lot of volume of Bitcoin and stuff. I never moved that much because I have my banking stuff in a credit union. It's already just slower, so I'm not able to do stuff really fast anyway, so I wouldn't know if there is a problem.
Yeah, I've never had any problems either, and it's just great because it's like you said earlier, it's just convenient. So that's how I buy pretty much all my Bitcoin now.
Right. We started with Mt. Gox, but then they had transfer issues, so that's why we ended up switching to Coinbase, and it's convenient, so.
Another kind of way of getting Bitcoins is using purse.io, which was, I think we've talked about on this podcast before, formerly known as GetB, SpendB, where it's this website where you can buy Bitcoins, you can also spend your Bitcoins, which I haven't used it to purchase any Bitcoins. I've only used it to spend mine. But if you have an Amazon account, you have the ability to make an Amazon wish list, and that's, I guess you can use that to remember items that you want, or you can make your Amazon wish list either private or public. And if you make it public, anyone else who sees your account can then buy that for you and have it shipped, and it comes with a nice little piece of paper that they can write a note on that says something, or normally it just shows, it's got like a picture of a gift wrap box. I don't know if that makes sense, but when you make an Amazon wish list, you just, instead of clicking on, if you've ever used Amazon, which most people have. Instead of saying add to cart, you can say add to wish list, and then you select which wish list. So if you do that, you make up your wish list, say I want to get some books, I add all those books to it, and then where purse.io comes in, you just take the URL from your wish list, and you go to the part of their website that says spend Bitcoins, and you just put the URL in there. The website takes a few minutes. It's a few seconds to a minute. So then it's like your wish list gets uploaded onto there, and it gets added to a bunch of other wish lists on there that other people order for you, because to use this to spend your Bitcoins, you put Bitcoins onto your account there, and then whenever you make a wish list, you put it in there, and it gives you like a dollar amount for that wish list, and then whatever the current exchange rate is, you have to have that much Bitcoin in your account. Normally, they'll have you have a little bit more than that in case of any fluctuations in price. So then it's open for people to buy that wish list for you, because then that person, like if they're buying my books for me, they then get that Bitcoin sent to them. Like once I receive it, I confirm delivery, and that sends the Bitcoins to them. So it gets put into an escrow whenever they decide to pick up the order, but it doesn't go to them until I confirm it. At least that's how I believe it works. But it's nice to be able to use Bitcoins in Amazon, and also I get a 6% discount on any order that I make. And it's also nice because whenever you're making the order, you can say I would like the person who's buying it for me to have Amazon Prime, because I don't personally have Amazon Prime, but this way I can always just get free 2-day shipping. Like I said, I haven't used it to buy Bitcoin. I think it's like a 6% charge.
Well, he's been implementing a few minor changes where you can actually name your own price.
Okay, it says right on the front of the webpage, Purse.io is the new way for you to get and spend Bitcoins. Buy BTC anonymously, quickly, and with no hassle. Spend BTC privately at Amazon, save 6%. And it says more retailers coming soon, so I'm kind of interested in who else they're going to put onto there. This is a way, I don't know how anonymous it is, because I'm pretty sure if you're buying Bitcoins, they do it with a credit card, because you're having to do it through Amazon. So it's either like a credit card, or you might be able to use like an Amazon gift card. But like I said, I haven't ever bought Bitcoin through it. But I've had about probably 4 orders, because I did an order with this website same time that I got my tea kettle from Overstock. I got some tea through Amazon, and that hasn't come yet, because with me putting up the order, it has to wait until someone decides to buy that order, because I'm not, like, Purse.io isn't buying it. They kind of just facilitate someone else to do it for them. And so that got picked up Saturday, so it was shipped supposedly yesterday, and so it'll probably just get here tomorrow. But that's normally pretty fast delivery. I haven't really had a problem with them. I thought I had a problem the first time, but that's because the stuff that I ordered, one of the items was coming from China, so then just all of a sudden I got it like a month later, and I thought I just lost it, because this is actually kind of a funny story, and I told you this, Daniel, was that, actually I told you too, John, but I ordered it was the pop filter for my microphone. I ordered the pop filter along with some other stuff, and I didn't get the pop filter, but I got a 10-pack of sardines, sardine cans. So I talked to the guy who runs it, and he kind of just laughed too, and he was like, he thought somehow someone else's order got screwed up, but he said just talk to Amazon, you should just be able to return it, but turned out I actually just sold them to my uncle, so it wasn't bad. So I ended up getting, I guess, a free thing of sardines, I guess. But I thought they just like messed it up and switched it, but I got the pop filter like a month later. So it all worked out. But I mean, the orders I've had after that have gone pretty smoothly. I haven't gotten any more surprise gifts.
I'm with you, Tim. I haven't actually bought Bitcoin with that because of the markup. But in fact, he says even that the orders get eaten up pretty quick because so many people are trying to get a hold of Bitcoin with their credit cards. And so the orders get taken up pretty fast.
And also with Purse.io, I kind of like that because it's another company that's run by a guy who's a voluntarist. So I kind of like to support businesses like that, especially if they're going to give me a discount on things. That makes it even better.
Yeah, I mean, the discount is huge. Because, I mean, why on earth wouldn't you use it if you're getting a discount? I guess you should also just mention that issue was still during the beta phase, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right, yeah.
He's made some significant changes since then, and updates, and it's probably a little more reliable now. Or maybe it even was Amazon's problem, but even then, that's actually one of the good things about it, is that, if there's ever a problem, or if something never gets shipped, or who knows what, you have the ability to go to Amazon and tell them what happened and things like that. So maybe I'm not thinking of all the possibilities, but it seems like if Amazon is kind of running things behind the scenes, you should be able to kind of work things out if there's ever a problem.
You get an Amazon tracking order, so it's like you can see that that Amazon is at least sending you something.
Right. So it should work out pretty well. Get a discount or get some Bitcoins fairly easily. That's nice. Thanks for listening to the YMB and BTC podcast. Visit our website, YMBandBTC.com. Join us next Thursday. And don't forget about our Amagi Metals interview in 2 weeks.